Hi, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Ferguson Library. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time here tonight with us. Thank you to the Friends of the Ferguson Library, without whose energy, support, everything that they do goes into funding programs here for the Ferguson, and including this program tonight. If you're a friend of the library, we want to thank you so much. And if you're not a member yet, please consider donating. You'll find information on our website, fergusonlibrary.org. And of course, now a big thank you to our speaker tonight. We are so pleased to welcome Jerry Zezima, author of Every Day is Saturday, Sleeping Late, Playing with Grandchildren, Surviving the Quarantine, and Other Joys of Retirement. Jerry writes a humor column for Hearst Connecticut Media Group, which includes his hometown paper and our hometown paper, the Stamford Advocate. His column is distributed by Tribune News Service of Chicago and is run in newspapers nationwide and abroad. His other books include Leave It to Boomer, The Empty Nest Chronicles, Grandfather Knows Best, and Nini and Poppy's Excellent Adventures, Grandkids, Wine Clubs, and Other Ways to Keep Having Fun. So please, everyone, let's give a warm virtual welcome to Jerry Zezima.
Here's a warm virtual thanks to everybody for being here, for being brave enough to join. So thank you, Barbara.
Well, congratulations on the new book, and congratulations on your retirement. How's that going?
It's going great. The hardest part was, when you really don't do any work, how can you retire? So, but
That's not true.
It's been wonderful. And a lot of people think, or they've asked, is it like a shock to the system or anything like that? No, not really. I mean, it happened pretty suddenly, and I just got used to it, and I got used to sleeping a little later, so that was great, and it's been wonderful. And actually, I've been busier. I said, well, what am I going to do with myself? And I said, well, I know, I'll write a book. So I did.
Now, do you want to talk a little bit about your history with the Advocate? And I don't know if a lot of our viewers know that you were at Newsday for quite some time.
Right. Well, let me start even before that. As I write in the book, I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was in high school. And I went to Stanford Catholic High School. And my decision could be encapsulated in one word: algebra. I could never do algebra. I was always good in subjects where you really didn't have to know the answers. And one of them was English composition. And I found that I could just bluff my way through. And, I later went on to college, and I got a BA in political science, but I've always had a BS in life. And so I loved writing, and I was the class clown. So I said, how can I parlay this into a career? And I read in high school. Yes, I was in high school, and I read read my hometown paper, the Stamford Advocate. And I read the great humor columnists, Art Buchwald and Irma Bombeck. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to write a humor column. And I said to myself, it's like doing stand-up comedy, except you don't have to show up. I said, it's very convenient. So a year out of college, I just walked into the office of the Stamford Advocate, my hometown paper, which was then on Atlantic Street, and I had no experience, none. And I just announced I wanted a job. And the editor at the time, Roland Blay, said, well, what experience do you have? I said, I don't have any. So he gave me a test. And fortunately, it wasn't an algebra test. And I did well enough because I was hired, but there were some questions to which I did not know the answers. And I just wrote the silliest, stupidest, craziest, funniest stuff I could think of. And later on, he said, that's what got you the job. He said it showed signs of creativity. And I was about to say, I didn't think you were supposed to make stuff up in a newspaper, but for once in my life, I kept my mouth shut and I got a job. And I could not get a job today with the lack of experience I had then. So I'm forever grateful to the Stanford Advocate for hiring me. In the book, one of the two dedications is to the Stanford Advocate, which gave me um, a chance, a column, and a career. And so I was many things there for about 9 years, and I failed miserably in one thing after another. There wasn't nothing left to do but write a humor column. So I did. They gave me one, and I've
Well,
been
I
writing
think
it for
that
35 years.
I talked to you about how when I moved with my family from New York to Darien in 1992, I didn't know the soul. And honestly, I feel like you were my first friend. It was your column, we were going through a lot of the same things in life, raising children, worrying about mortgages, just, all of those same things. And it was such a great welcome to the community. So I'll always be forever grateful for that.
Well, it was my pleasure. I had you specifically in mind, Barbara. You didn't know that. I didn't know it
Well,
either. But
just so I think it's important to know that, just beyond, the people right in your immediate community, that, that you were welcoming to new people as well, and then to the broader community as your column was syndicated as well.
right.
So
Yes.
you reached a very broad population. I see Debbie Golden says, it's not too late to learn algebra, Jerry. She's happy to tutor you. She's a member of our Friends Board. She's the whole.
And who is this? Debbie?
Debbie
Debbie
Golden.
Golden? All right, Debbie, if you can put up with me, then I will be happy to take algebra from you. I will say this very quickly. I remember the classic algebra problem. The Smiths are leaving New York for Boston at 9 a.m., averaging 55 miles an hour. The Joneses are leaving Boston for New York at 10 a.m., averaging 50 miles an hour. Question: at what point in the 200-mile journey will they pass each other? Answer: who cares? So if Debbie can convince me that it matters, then I'll be happy to take a lesson.
So that's not algebra. Someone saying
not
that's
the way
not
I did it. No.
So then your path to the Tribune, I mean to Newsday,
Yeah.
Your path to Newsday, because that's a big paper. That's Long Island, right?
Yes, it's Long Island. I tell people I'm wanted by the police in Stanford, so I had to move. But that wasn't really the case. I loved being on staff at the Stanford Advocate, but it's a relatively small paper compared with say Newsday. And at the time, my two daughters were approaching college, the cost of which rivals the gross national product of Finland. So I was at the top of the pay scale as a writer, and I said I really need to make a little bit more money. Otherwise, I would have stayed at the Stanford Advocate. So I got a job at Newsday as a copy editor. I tell people that I was in charge of inserting typographical errors and libelous mistakes into feature stories. I guess I didn't do too well because I never got sued. But that was a good experience as well. But while I was there, I kept writing my column for the Stanford Advocate, and then eventually all the Hearst, Connecticut media group papers. I will say right now up front that I appreciate all the people who read my column. It will not run in the Hearst, Connecticut media papers after the end of the year. It's being dropped. So I just wanted to let you all know that I will not stop writing it. I'm going to write it for Tribune News Service, and it'll continue to run in other papers. But I'm forever grateful to Stanford Advocate and Hearst for running it for so long. But at the end of the year, the end of December, it won't be in the Stanford Advocate or the other Hearst papers anymore.
Oh, well, I hope they change their mind.
Well, I hope so too. And I will say though that they're good people. They have a lot of good folks on staff, and they make decisions based on what they think is best for the papers and their readers. And so that there's no other reason than that. That's what they think would be best. So and I guess it's common in a lot of papers these days that things get cut. So
Right.
anyway, just so you know.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And with the community, we see some boo-hoos, and that people are sorry about that. So, and also, I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. Someone says, "Who's that person talking to Jerry?" My name is Barbara Thomas. I'm the programming specialist at the Ferguson Library. I do a lot behind the scenes. Sometimes in these talks, I'm behind the Ferguson Library, but I'm lucky enough to be here with Jerry today.
Now you're in the front of the scene today.
I'm in the front of the scenes today.
Yes.
So
and you have very graciously lowered your otherwise high standards to have
that's
me
not
on.
true.
So thanks.
Well, somebody is asking, Jerry, what can be done to change minds? Like, I guess they're referring to the decision at the Advocate.
Oh, well, I don't know. I've tried. I mean, let me put it this way. I've never done this in 35 years of writing the column. I've never suggested to anyone that they do something or contact someone, so I'm not doing that now. But since it has been asked, I will tell you that the editor is a very good journalist. Her name is Wendy Metcalf, and it's Wendy, and the last name is spelled M as in Mary, Etcalf as in Frank, E. And I think, if I remember right, her email address is her name, Wendy, then dot Metcalf at Hearst, Herst media, mediact.com. And that's all I'm going to say. As I said, I've never encouraged anyone to make calls or send emails or whatever, but since I was asked, she's the person to contact.
Right. And this doesn't interfere with you being retired. Someone is saying, but wait, you're retired, but this is something, this is a hobby for you, right? Or
well, actually, no, it's never been a hobby. I got into journalism. My professional goal before I got into journalism when I was in school was to be silly and irresponsible and actually get paid for it. I said, how can I do this? And I said, well, I want to write a humor column. And so it's not a hobby. I've always had to do other things in addition to that. At the Stanford Advocate, when I was on staff, I was an editor, I was a feature writer. Before I started the humor column, I was a sports writer. At Newsday, I was an editor. But now that I'm retired, I'm doing this exclusively. So I've doubled up actually on the number of columns I write. They now run weekly. Although I guess it depends how you spell weekly. But anyway, it's every week. And I wrote the book. So no, it's not a hobby. It's what I love to do. And I will say,
I definitely misspoke there. Apologies.
No. That's okay. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm spectacularly unqualified to do anything else. So,
well, we have a question here in the comments, and I'm going to piggyback it onto a question that I had as well, because I mean, you write so much about your family, and sometimes I would wonder how they felt about it, and if you ever had to run column ideas past them. And someone else is saying in your columns, you always share the funny interactions that you have with complete strangers. Are you really that outgoing, and are people really that willing to put up with your often absurd questions and comments?
What do you mean often absurd? Always
I'm thinking
absurd.
of your story of your anniversary at the dump.
Yes. Well, as far as my family is concerned, I one of the nicest compliments I ever got from a reader was a woman who said, "I think your columns are very funny, but what I really like about them is you never put down your wife or use your kids for cheap laughs."
Right.
And I'm not above trying to get cheap laughs, as the readers know, but they're at my expense. So it seldom has there been a problem, with family members. When the girls, I have two daughters, and now I have five grandchildren. My wife and I, Sue, a saint on earth. Um, but when girls were in school, they get questions from classmates or parents of classmates or teachers. They'd say, "Is your father the guy who writes that goofball column in the paper?" And they'd say, "Yeah, that's him." But it's good-natured, self-deprecating humor, and I think a lot of people can see themselves in it. Um, I reaction I also get is like people will say it's like you're living in our house. And my stock answer is actually, yes, I am living in your house. You're out of beer. So please go buy some more. But as far as the complete strangers are concerned, things just seem to happen to me. And yes, I am outgoing. I guess a lot of humorists or comedians too are either like really shy in real life or they're kind of cranky or whatever. I mean, with me, for better or for worse, what you see and read and hear is what you get. And yeah, if little light bulb goes off in my otherwise empty head, I'll say, gee, this could be a column. And I'll be right up front with people. I say, I'm a syndicated newspaper columnist. I write humor and I never put down anyone else. I said, if I have a bad experience, I don't write about it. If a complete stranger wants to be written about, it's always in a positive way. So, and a lot of people say that you need that. You need a laugh or a chuckle or a smile to offset, all the bad stuff that goes on. So there you go.
Okay, well, we have a few more questions coming in, uh, but we're wondering, did you ever have to get permission from your family for a topic for a column? I'm thinking about like your daughters when they were teenagers. Do you have to run anything by your family members before? I don't want to
Well,
even say printing it, but sometimes even continuing on a thought.
yeah, well, I don't run it by them because I don't like to run. I kind of like walk it by them.
Oh,
But but there was there was one instance in particular where my daughters were wearing pajama bottoms to school. They were in high school, I guess, and that was the thing. And they always thought I was the most uncool guy in America. So I decided to prove them wrong. And for one day and one day only, I wore pajamas to work. My wife sent me out on errands before I got to work. I went to the bank um, and I found like a line of people, 6, 8, 10 people. Nobody wanted to make eye contact with me. Um, I went to the post office, then I went to work, and I got home, and my daughters were like giddy with excitement. They said, "Dad, you're so cool." And I said, "Well, I'm going to write about this." And they said, but it appeared, and they were fine with it. There was one other time when they were that same age. Well, actually, a little bit older. My younger daughter was home from college, and her room looked like a bomb went off in it. And my wife, Sue, said, her room looks like a disaster area. So because I think differently than most people, um, I decided to find out if I could have her room officially declared a disaster area. So we could send in, like have heavy trucks to pick the stuff up. And I started with the governor's office and I got onto this guy who was in the state disaster preparedness department. And I explained it to him. He said, it sounds like too big a job even for the state. You're going to have to go federal. So I called the White House. And at the time, George W. Bush was in office, and his two daughters are the same age as pretty much as my daughters. And I wanted to know if he had ever declared his daughters' rooms disaster areas. And I got up to Mrs. Bush's press secretary, and she said that would be classified information. And I thought, thank you, God. And my daughter thought it was hilarious. But yes, and when they're that age, I've said and I've written, kids not only don't want to be seen with their parents, they don't want other people to know they even have them. So at that time, I had to be a little careful, but again, I never put down my wife or my daughters, and was always, making fun of myself. And now, with the grandchildren, they're wonderful.
Well, let's talk about that. We have a lot of comments and questions coming up in the chat, and I promise we will get to as many as we can in a little bit. But Jerry, just to share with you that Lee is saying, haha, I remember that when you wore the pajama bottoms.
Yeah, you have a good memory. That was a while ago.
And some people saying, yes, Sue was a saint. And
yes.
So, but we'll get back to some of the questions. But to get back to the book and grandchildren,
You mean this book?
This book.
The one that's available on Amazon?
It's Saturday. We need to talk about this book.
Yeah.
Which is it's so charming. It touches on so many topics and so many things about being retired, about grandchildren, the joy of grandparenthood, which
right.
I'm happy enough to experience, but
it's great.
It's a wonderful thing. But I think that you address it so well in the book, and we talked about it in person just this period of time now where we really, we can't just freely see our grandchildren and how we're dealing with it. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to talk some about your experiences with your grandkids in the book and experiences during quarantine, I think that'll help a lot of us.
Okay, well, first, people who are retired or who want to be retired wonder what it's like. And I'll tell you, retirement isn't for everybody, but it's really for me. I think it's great. But I actually did some real work for this book, which is unlike me to do any kind of work at all. But I talked with a lot of people, including classmates from high school and college, and former coworkers about how they are coping with retirement, or some of them are coming up on retirement. And I've found that it's wonderful. Now, right after I retired, I was very busy with the grandchildren, and this was pre-pandemic. So I was taking trips to see the youngest three who live in the DC area, and welcoming twin grandchildren. They now, my grandchildren range in age from 7 to 1, and they're all more mature than I am. But it's wonderful. And of course, like with, when my daughters were young, there's been a gold mine of material. But that's not the main point. It's to be with them, to love them, and to have a good time with them. And then the pandemic hit, and my wife, Sue, who was a teacher's assistant, she had to work remotely since school was closed. So that was like being retired because she didn't have to go in. The downside is she was stuck in the house with me. So she got a taste of retirement. The other downside is we couldn't see the kids, and we're quarantined. So it was Sue and I. And even then I thought, well, what are going to write about if you can't get out? But the column that you mentioned, Sue and I celebrated our 42nd wedding anniversary in the most romantic way possible. We got out of the house and went to the dump. So we had, I said, you know what, we have stuff to do. But at that very time that we're gathering stuff to bring to the landfill, these fiber optic guys came to the backyard, and it was just serendipity. I mean, I said, you couldn't have come at a better time, on a better day. It's our anniversary. And so, happy anniversary and all that. And the people at the dump, I told them, this is our anniversary. It's how we're celebrating it. And they said, okay, happy anniversary. And I got a column out of it. It can be anything. And I look for the positive among the things, many things these days that are negative. Among them, of course, the pandemic. I've never made fun of that because it's very serious. It's very hard to find humor in tragedy. But I did find humor in being quarantined. But it's still pretty hard because, we haven't seen the kids and, daughters or grandchildren. So it's kind of tough, and everyone is going through it. But if you're a baby boomer and of retirement age, as for retirement itself, I talk to people who've said, oh, I'm in my wife's hair all the time. I had to get, like a part-time job at the Home Depot or someplace like that. And other people just take to it, instantly, as I did. So it's been great.
Well, someone had asked for, they were asking for maybe some concrete examples from the book, and I'm just going to go through a couple of things that were my favorites, because I mean, I love the story with the dump. I love the story with you during the pandemic, talking to your hairstylist and the hair cutting scissors, because I know there were waits of like 4 weeks to try to order them. And that was a fun story. And I think especially what made me laugh was you taking your lunch in a Victoria's Secret bag. Because those bags and Sephora bags, anyone who brings their lunch to work, those are the best bags. And when they go, nothing else compares.
That's right. Well, when I was working, I would Sue would pack my lunch in a Victoria's Secret bag every day. And it was the head of the newsroom. And when the bag wore out, we had to go to Victoria's Secret. And I said to Sue, I'll buy a little something and I'll get a bag out of it. So, yeah.
There's some really very charming stories in the book. So I'm going to get to some of the questions here, because there's a mention of your daughter in the Washington Post.
Yes, my older daughter, Katie, excuse me, works for the Washington Post. She was a reporter. She's now an editor there. She's, she went into journalism. I would take her, and my younger daughter, Lauren, who was a very talented photographer, to the Stanford Advocate. Like, you take your daughters to work day, and they loved it. And Katie definitely had more journalistic experience than I did before she was hired professionally. She wrote for I think it was an editor for the Stanford High School newspaper, and then she was involved with the college paper. So yes, she's on staff at the Washington Post. And as I said, my younger daughter Lauren is a really good, talented photographer who's starting her own business. So they both, in their own way, have kind of gravitated to that kind of thing. And I was asked once, to what do you owe, or what do you think the reason is for their talent? And my answer is DNA, which stands for daughter's natural ability. It's theirs. It's not mine.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair. But you had influence. You know that.
Well, as long as I'm not under the influence, but I did. But neither Sue nor I pushed our daughters into anything. Katie, as I said, gravitated to journalism. Lauren was in business for a while, and then developed, pardon the expression, her photographic bent, and is starting her own photography business. But the same journalism things apply to what they do. So yeah, I guess I had some influence, but the best thing about them is they take after Sue. So
Well, I've seen this a couple of times, and I'm going to ask this blind because I don't really know what it means, but people are asking about the Porky and Zez campaign. Does that
yes,
mean anything to you?
yes. I wrote a column recently about the Porky and Zez campaigns of 1992, 96, and 2000. In 1992, I decided I wanted to run for vice president of the United States. Now, you've read my stuff. I don't get political, but this one time, or 3 times, I did. But I approached it in the same way I do in writing about family. It was not cruel or mean-spirited. So I decided in 92 to run for vice president because, essentially the vice president didn't really have to do much, and that's my specialty. So I was looking for presidential candidates to take me on as a running mate. And this is absolutely true. I mean, I do this stuff for a living. I take common things and take one more step than a normal person would, because I'm not normal. But I wrote to then President George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, who ultimately won. He was the Democratic contender, and Ross Perot, who ran as an independent. So President Bush stuck with Dan Quayle. Bill Clinton wrote back, actually, and 3 times thanking me for my support. I said, I'm not supporting you unless you pick me as your vice president. So he picked Al Gore. And then Ross Perot, I don't know who he picked. So anyway, I found Alan Abel, who died only a couple of years ago. He's a famous media prankster. He once got the New York Times to run his obituary. And of course, he was not then deceased. So he did this stuff. So he ran as president, and he ran under the name of Porky. My nickname is Zez. So we were the Gershwin-inspired ticket of Porky and Zez. And we ran under the banner of the Cocktail Party. So we got a late start in 92. 96 was our banner year. We were the opening act for Debate 96 in Hartford. We had a convention at a hotel in Stamford. It was on TV, and we actually got votes. I swear to God, we got votes, and we long and often wondered who those people were who voted for us. But and then in 2000, there was that was the very contentious one where George W. Bush defeated Al Gore, and they had the hanging chads in Florida and all that. I said, well, we're not going to top that again, so we hung it up. But we had a ball, and it was good-natured stuff. It wasn't the typical political venom and all that. And again, we poke fun at ourselves. we had part of our platform was healthcare, and we were in New York City in a cab, and we came up with Big Apple coverage. So Big Apple because we were in New York City, and also because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So that was our healthcare platform. So like a 10-cent copay on every apple. But yes, that was the Porky and Zez, or the campaigns, the three of them.
Now, you say that, you didn't get political in your columns, but we have a couple of questions. I'm going to glom them all together. First, I'll say someone says, but I bet you never had a news conference between a sex shop and a crematorium. That's from Lee. But I'm going to move on and say
no, I didn't. If I decided to, it probably wouldn't have. The editors wouldn't let it get in the column. But
so like I said, you get political in your columns. So someone is asking, does the Advocate have a written or unwritten policy or practice about what you say in the column about incumbent officials? And then someone else had said, had asked, if you were asked to write a news column describing the news of the past week, meaning the election, how would you approach that article?
The past week?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I noticed that the price of beer has gone up. So I would approach it from an economic standpoint based on our house,
Mm-hmm.
and it wouldn't get political. I mean, Irma Bombeck, and again, one of my heroes, was asked, well, how come you don't do that stuff? And she said, I know exactly where I belong, and this is what I want to do. She said, I have the utility room beat. And my beat is, I write about family foibles and the funny little things of everyday life. So if I had to put a topical spin on anything, it would be something like that. I wouldn't get into, again, the political stuff, because that's not what I do. I mean, people have often said, how come you don't write other stuff? Well, we should write like a novel, or write a movie, a screenplay, or a children's book. And I say, well, I don't do these things for the best reason I can think of. I don't want to. This is what I've always wanted to do. So when people say, well, have you ever thought about writing like serious stuff? And actually, no. Because
you're writing a sitcom.
Well, I am writing a sitcom, but that's right.
Let people know about that.
I'm writing a sitcom. I'm trying to find an agent or a publisher who's either foolish or drunk enough to go for it. But this started years and years ago. Sue and I would be, and I don't watch that much TV really, but we'd be watching something like, Everybody Loves Raymond. And Sue would say to me, that should be us. And I would say, hun, I mean, half the people in America say that. And then I thought about it, and I said, yeah. And that's how the books came about. Because if you want to write like a sitcom based on your work, I couldn't take like a fistful of columns and say, well, this is what I want to do. You'll see like in TV programs based on, a book by so-and-so. And I said, well, and I was advised, the best thing to do is to write a book. And so I wrote one, the first one. I actually got to second base with Ron Howard. I went to his office. He has one, or had one, I guess, in Greenwich. And I heard that he took it to Imagine Entertainment, and then it, didn't go any further than that. But I said, this is interesting. So more recently, I wrote a pilot for this sitcom, and you have to write a treatment, I guess. So I did. And I took it to W. Bruce Cameron, a buddy of mine, who writes the Dog's Purpose and Dog's Journey books, and he's had movies. He's out with a Christmas dog book now, which is he's great. Buy his books too, but buy mine first. And he was wonderfully helpful, but it's a very tough nut to crack. And then I got involved with this book. And I've put the sitcom on the back burner for now. I just have to remember not to turn on the stove and burn the house down. But yes, that's the only thing other than my columns and books that I have an interest in doing. You know, whether I go on to do other things, I doubt it. But yeah, that's the sitcom, and it's based mostly on my second book, which is about empty nesters. So if you think TV is bad now, wait till my show gets on the air.
I wish you luck with it. And I mean, we've got a little bit of time left if people have questions, but you know, you're back in Stanford virtually. So
Right.
And now your mom's still here.
Yes.
You grew up here. So I'm wondering, like, when you grew up, where did you like to hang out? What is it like for you when you visit Stanford now, when you see the difference from when you grew up?
Well,
we may have people here, clearly we have people here in the audience that know you, and many who may have known you when. So
right.
it's, any questions, type them in the chat and talk to us, Jerry. Let us know.
Well, I'd like to clarify one thing, Barbara. I haven't grown up. I was born and raised in Stanford, and I love it. Yes, my mother and my sisters are still living in Stanford, in the Stanford area. In fact, Sue, my wife, and my mother, Rosina, share a birthday, and it happens to be tomorrow. So happy birthday to both of them.
Birthday.
But my family is everything. You know, I got my sense of humor from my late father, the original and best Jerry Zezima, from my mother, who is positive, funny, inspirational. My sisters have great senses of humor. And you know, as far as Stanford is concerned, I've always loved Stanford. You know, as I said earlier, I would have stayed on staff at the Stanford Advocate, but you know the economic reasons. But I mean, as I had said to you earlier today, before we went on, I mean, Stanford is both a big city and a small town, and neither. It's not big enough to be New York. It's not small enough to be New Canaan. It's probably, I think a lot of people would agree, it's a very good combination. Of course, it was smaller when I was young, of course. And now, you know, you come back. I haven't come back because of you know, the pandemic, and we have a family situation where you know, it's not advisable for any of us to travel. So I haven't been up in a while, but my God, you know, you go downtown and it's looks like a little Manhattan, and to me that's good. I know, you know, there's traffic and stuff. The neighborhoods, for the most part, haven't really changed, except for, you know, the South End is being all built up. Some people think that's good and some don't. But you know, Glenbrook, Sue and I and the girls lived in. We raised them in Glenbrook. When I was in high school, and before that, lived in the High Ridge area. And you know, the neighborhoods themselves have grown and changed a bit, but they still haven't not changed nearly as much as downtown. It's Stanford's what, like, I guess now the second largest city in the state, and
Right.
yeah. So I mean, it's a good place, an exciting place to be. Um, they're redoing or have redone for the most part Mill River Park. Um, so there's a lot of great stuff going on, and it'll be even better when people are able to get out more.
Right. Now, someone is asking, this is Angela and Hank. They want to know, did you ever pay your tab at the sitting room?
No, that's one of the reasons I left. There, the Angela and Hank, dear, dear friends. In fact, Hank went to Stanford Catholic High School with Sue and me. And we were in the class of 1971. Well, they had class, I didn't, but we were in the class of 71. We all went to St. Michael's College in Vermont, and Hank and I were roommates for 3 years. We're the best man at each other's wedding. Angela, his wife, is just fabulous. But before we found jobs, Hank and I and Sue would go to the sitting room in Bull's Head, and we were pretty social, safely so. We didn't do anything crazy in cars or anything like that. But the question is, on the advice of my attorney, who is in jail, I think the statute of limitations has run out, so I probably don't have to pay the tab. I hope there's no interest on it.
So we have a big hello from your former neighbors in Stanford, John and Judy Stoddard, and they say,
Oh, yes.
yuck.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Hi, John and Judy.
It's so great to just for you to be hearing from people that you may not have heard from for a while.
Yes.
And Elizabeth, I think a relative, Elizabeth Zezima, she's asking, do you still do public speaking?
Elizabeth is one of my two sisters. That's the fabulous sisters, Elizabeth and
Elizabeth,
Susan.
fabulous sister.
Yeah, no, they're wonderful. My sisters are great. I do private speaking now, since I can't do I can't do public speaking, but I will start it up again. I love public speaking, and I said before, a lot of writers, or humorists, let's say, are shy, and a lot of writers don't like crowds or talking groups and all that. Not me. I love that. So I haven't done it in quite a while, but as soon as it's safe, I will.
That'll be great. Elizabeth is letting us know that she's there with your mom Rosina and sister Susan. So we're happy to hear that. Happy birthday, Rosina. Oh, this is so great. We have Judith Marks White is happy to see you. She's saying you're doing great as always, Jerry. This has just been really, really lovely evening.
Let me say a word or two or several about Judith. She is a wonderful columnist herself. She writes for the Westport News. Very, very funny, but she is very versatile as well. And she can write serious stuff, which I'm, of course, incapable of doing. But she's a good friend and a very talented woman.
Nice. Let's see. Elizabeth says, I want to let everyone know that Jerry delivers the best eulogy I have ever heard. Funny, poignant, and a great comfort to families. That's really lovely. That's a really hard thing to do.
Well,
that's really lovely to be able to do that.
well, it's usually at a sad time. I mean, you kind of have to not be around anymore for me to do this. But yeah, and I think actually best thing to do in that situation is it's all about the stories. And people have said, well, is there any time that you really can't find humor? And I said, well, yeah, there are some times, but actually that's not one of them. Someone dies, and a loved one, relative, good friend, or whatever, and it's a sad time. But what happens? You get together. There are people you probably haven't seen for a long time. You start to reminisce, you start to laugh, you start to tell stories. And that's what I do. I take those things and incorporate them into eulogies. I mean, my goal has never really been to be a eulogist. It's a humorist, but I use the humor in send-offs for people.
That's a beautiful quality to have, and it's just what is life? It's about the people and the stories. I mean, so
Yep.
To be able to bring that together, whether it be in a column that brings welcome to someone like me, or somewhat commiserate with to the rest of the population, or make someone laugh, or to eulogize someone. That's a real talent to have, Jerry. So we're very grateful for you.
Well,
The book is filled with great stories,
and they're all true.
and they're
Incredible,
all
but
true.
true. Yeah.
And they're all true. So Judith is saying thank you very much, and I'm going to echo that, and thank you so much from all of us at the Ferguson Library and friends of the library, the city of Stamford. We've just been, we've known you for years, and it's so great to be able to have this conversation with you tonight.
Well, thank you, Barbara. And I love the Fergusons, my hometown library, and it's a major league institution. It really is. It's a wonderful place. You should be a friend of the Ferguson.
FergusonLibrary.org.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, stop in and see us. We're open. We've got great PPE. We've got social distancing. All branches are open. Bookmobile is on the road. We're doing everything that we can to serve the community. So thank you always for coming to us and thinking of us. And Jerry, again, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome so much.
Success with the book, with the sitcom, whatever you do. Congratulate Sue on her retirement.
I shall.
Happy birthday to Sue, your mom.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Okay, bye now.